Welcome to the Firefighter Aptitude Test Seminar 2025 for Fire Recruitment Australia. Tonight, we're just going to go through a little bit of what you need to know for aptitude. Because it's a bit of a mix of everyone here tonight as well, I'm going to keep it kind of general in terms of the things that you can approach because there will be a few people from a lot of different fire services, but it'll just be the stuff that you really should know before you go into the test. And for those of you who don't know me as well, I'm the aptitude coach for Fire Recruitment Australia. I've done this for nearly a decade now, and I know everything about these tests. So we'll go through a little bit of what I know and hopefully get something out of it. So as a little overview from start, I'm going to ask you guys just to tell me a little bit about what fire service you guys are applying for as well. And then we'll cover a little bit of all the general things to know and what you need to know before going to test about your specific aptitude test. Then we'll cover the do's and don'ts of the aptitude test. So how do you approach the questions? Should you skip questions? How do you tackle them to make sure that you're optimizing your marks? Also, how best to prepare for them. And then we'll finish with a little bit of Q&A to allow you guys to ask me any questions and stuff that you guys might have. Well, if you guys join this link at the top, you guys will be able to vote on it. I think you guys might even be able to click it. I'm not sure. It's also kind of give me a guide on what I can do and talk about too throughout the test or throughout the session tonight too. Hey, so it looks like mostly New South Wales here tonight, which is good. And what we'll do is we'll move on now, but I'll try and center it around what you guys have said here as well. So in terms of the exam details, so every single exam for every state is different. So you really must know what your exam categories are, the number of questions and the times. This is a big thing that I've noticed in the last week because we changed the names of the exam categories on our new website. And a lot of people were complaining that we're sending the wrong things, but they have all been changed to match the exact naming of what the test provider uses themselves. As we get asked this a lot, like there's no deductive listed in aviation. Well, that's because they call it assessment, but it's deductive. So I've gone through and made sure all the max, and that's something you guys should know too. What do they mean when they say there's an assessment, there's a cognitive assessment? What does that include and how many questions and the time frame? And this is going to be really important. The other key thing is that some of the states allow calculators and some of them don't. And this is going to be something that you really need to know before you even start practicing because you don't want to be practicing the wrong way. Likewise, some allow pen and paper or whiteboard and some of them do not. So if you're applying for Queensland, you don't get to write anything down. So you must know how to do everything mentally without any pen and paper at all. For some of the tests, which I think most of you guys are applying to, they're supervised at some point. So Victoria and Queensland are supervised on the first go, and then New South Wales, you have to sit 2 tests. The first one's unsupervised, and then the second one, you have to resit supervised and get a similar score. So that is really key for New South Wales, is that you don't want to cheat in the first one because you might not get a similar score. And then the last thing is, this is another complaint that I actually got this week, was that on the new website that you couldn't navigate back and forth. This was actually intentional. It's something I can turn on and off on the new website, but most aptitude tests do not let you navigate back and forth. They don't let you flag questions and come back. And so that's something that you need to also be aware of because that's going to impact how you navigate and choose which questions you choose to do and which ones you don't choose to do in the test. I think only Queensland and Victoria let you navigate back and forth. Every other state will be only one way. So in terms of the do's and don'ts of aptitude tests, you must read the instructions and questions carefully. I cannot tell you the number of people who I've asked, why did you fail this section? And then I've worked out that they didn't read the instructions for it. So make sure you know exactly what the instructions are saying and the questions carefully. When you've been practicing for these tests as well, like you'll be practicing very similar questions. So don't just assume when you do the actual test that it's the exact same question. There might be something slightly different that you need to pick up on. And that's going to be really crucial in terms of getting the question and answer right. Time management is also really important. And this is the point that I mentioned earlier about you need to pick which questions you're answering and which ones you're not. When you have the ability to come back and flag it, that's a very different question because you know you can come back to the question. But if you have to go forward, the question becomes, if I spend more time on this, will I get it right? And what cost is that? So for example, some of those New South Wales really long numerical questions will take you a couple minutes. Is that coming at the cost of you getting 3 other questions right if you just guessed it and skipped it? And that's a question. And that's what I want you guys to learn with the website as well, is like There's questions on there that are really hard. I don't know if they want you to, well, some people will get them right in the test, but it doesn't mean that they're there necessarily for you to get them right. They're there to waste your time so that you then get other questions wrong. To some degree, you have to be like, okay, this question, I know how to solve it, and I know it's going to take too much effort, so I'm going to move on. The other main thing, and this I'm going to echo throughout the whole lesson tonight, is elimination tactics. You must have a reason why the other answers are wrong for abstract, for verbal, for mechanical. Not so much numerical a lot of the time, but if you don't have a reason why the other ones are wrong, you haven't solved the question. Is going to be a general rule in these tests. And the main thing is you guys really need to prepare. And I don't mean do 1 or 2 series. People have done that and you will not get through. You really have to know, okay, I'm going to sit down and do this test. And I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to look at the answers. I'm going to work out why I'm wrong. And I'm not going to make that same mistake again. If you're making the same mistake again, you're not understanding something and you need to look into that question type specifically in more detail. Just doing questions mindlessly without going over your answers and correcting your errors is not going to get you very far. In terms of the don't try and do this all last minute. You need to space it out over time. And that's really going to help you build up both confidence and speed. But at the same time, don't ignore the time as well in the test. I've heard many cases of people not getting far enough through. And I think New South Wales is a prime example of that. People who didn't practice last time only got through 10 to 20 questions and the requirement to pass is closer to 30. So that's a really important factor, particularly for New South Wales. But in terms of that, you also don't want to rush and get them all wrong. So it's a balancing act between speed and accuracy. And that's something that you're going to have to learn for yourself through practicing the questions. And the final point is do not leave any questions blank. A lot of them will error and alert you that you've accidentally left it blank. But there is no point in leaving a question blank. If you haven't answered it, it is also wrong. They're not just going to change it, what the score's out of because you didn't see the questions. You didn't see them, you got them wrong. So that's really important is that you see you have a minute left and you got 10 questions to go, or you got 6 seconds each to click something and click through them. And that's going to be really, really important. In terms of guessing, do not guess randomly. Don't go, oh, I'll do A for this one, B for this one, C for this one, D for this one, and so on. You'll get them all wrong. You got a higher statistical chance of getting them wrong. So if you're going to guess, you should pick one letter and stick to it. And statistically, C is the most common answer in a multiple choice question. So C is probably a good answer if you're just blindly guessing. Unless you have for some reason know that that's not correct, I would consistently guess the same letter. And then in theory, you have at least a 1 in 4, 1 in 5% chance of getting some of the ones you're guessing right. In terms of some general preparation strategies, what you need to do is really identify what is required for each of these tests. You need to have that written down and you need to know that very, very clearly. What's in each section of the test and how much time it is. That is a question that has come up a lot this week, and I've realized that a lot of people do not know what's in the New South Wales, for example, aptitude test. And that is something that you really need to know. Otherwise, your preparation will somewhat go to waste because you'll be flustered because you didn't expect certain things to be there. When you're practicing as well, you need to know, okay, what are my skills and what are my limitations and how can you use those to advantage? So, for example, if you're really good at multiplying, terrible at division, can you just do the division questions as a multiplication? That's a simple example, but there's ways of solving questions. There's many, many different ways of solving numerical questions. And sometimes it just requires some creative thinking on how you can use your own skills to best answer those. In that, create a plan, know what you don't know, write down the questions, be like, I don't know how to do this question. Go and learn and make sure you know how to do that question. Come back and practice it until you're consistently getting them all right. If you don't understand why you're doing these questions, you're just doing them. This is going to be a big issue for you if you come across a question that you haven't seen before. Whilst the questions will be similar, you need to understand what you're doing so that if something little changes in the question, you can adapt it, adapt the skills you've learned from the other questions and be able to answer the question on the day. Some other general exam advice as well, because I get asked this a lot because I've sat way too many exams in my entire life, is you should not technically study on the day of the test and even the night before. You should be relaxing, chill, get some good sleep. If you don't know it by then, you're not going to know it now. Also, drinking like iced water can really help calm you down and better focus in these situations. But the only way to get rid of anxiety is to be 100% confident that you know how to answer them. Once you start doing the first questions and you're like, okay, I have practice, I have worked out, you'll get confident and you feel that throughout the test. Now, I was going to break these down into each of the sections as well, just to kind of discuss the best approach to them more specifically. So for numerical reasoning, there's a bunch of different question types you could have. Like, is it worded problems that test provider likes? Is it algebra? Is it the missing numbers? Knowing that is very key, and you can get it from our website, but you can also just look it up on their website. They will tell you. I get asked all the time about like where you can get other aptitude questions. And if the answer to that is you should look at who the provider is, look at what the question types are, and then actually look at who's giving you the right questions. We're giving you the right questions, but you don't have to believe me on that. You can verify that for yourself. Other things to know for numerical is just your basics. Multiplication, division, percentage, fractions, ratios, all those things, they're pretty basic. You can practice them in the aptitude guide, or you can also just download a bunch of apps on your phone that are like quick math apps. And that kind of thing is going to really help you, because when you now know confidently what 7 times 7 is, that's going to save you so much time in the test. The other thing as well with numerical reasoning is most of the time you probably work out most questions if you had unlimited time. But the trick is to fight against the clock. And the other thing as well is you need to practice getting out what's the key information for the question. Or like a worded question like here on the side that I have, any kind of number in it, you should probably be using, right? And if you get to the end of this and haven't used all the numbers in the question, you're probably missing something. Unless it was like the number was to do with like the category or something else. But you need to go through and be like, okay, I need to use this part. This is a keyword here because that's the average and we know what that means. And then there's also these numbers here. You have to be able to get them out. Or if it's asking, okay, this is asking what the other number is, but you can have questions like, what's the percentage? What's the percentage change? Those words in maths have key meanings, and knowing what those means will really help you break down. Another important thing as well is because it is a time test, you should try and use shortcuts and estimate and eliminate options. And this is going to be the quickest way to save time. So you could be like, oh, okay, I know it has to be roughly this size. So for example, this question, if the average is 12 and these are your numbers, none of them are even at 12 yet. So the average being 12 means the missing number needs to be more than 12 to compensate for these other numbers being less than 12. So I could look at the multiple choice for this, which I haven't put here, but instantly go, okay, it needs to be more than 12, probably decently more than 12. I would expect the answer to be about 20. And that can help you obviously pick up the answers quickly, particularly when they're further apart, but it also means you don't have to get caught up in decimals or fractions as much. You can just be, okay, it's about this. I can pick the answer from there. The main thing is you don't make the same mistake twice, which obviously that's a bit of an extreme rule. But if you're going to practicing, you get something wrong, you should sit down and work out why you're wrong on that question and try and work it out and actually learn from your mistakes. So next section is abstract. With abstract, I feel like people struggle with this a lot of the time because they get really overwhelmed with the visual clutter in the question. But in abstract reasoning, there's only really 5 different answers. And that applies to all the states. They have their own answers within them, but based on each question type, there's maximum 5 answers. If you know the question type for your states, then you can just learn the 5 different answers. And the key then is to apply them to each of the different questions. The only thing that changes that abstract reasoning is the color and the shapes, right? The pattern itself will always be the same. And so you got to look for those key clues that identify what the pattern is. So for example, this one here on the side, there's in each square, there's lots of the same shape, 2 different colors each time, and the number is changing each time, right? So this one here is going to be a counting-based question because there's heaps of the same shape and the number of that is changing. So the solution for this will be based on counting how many of each shape there are. There'll be other ones, well, where they have the exact same number of shapes in each one, in which that case, it's more likely to be a tracking style question where you need to follow the shape around. Often as well, to get the final solution for abstract is there's often 2 patterns in the question. So one of them, like this one here, you have to count both the purple and the yellow technically to get the answer. This one is a bit easier because you can tell straight away. But so there's like 2 here, and then there's 4 and 3, and like you have to work out technically the missing number as well. So there's like the shape and the number of it for each different one in here. you should be doing this via elimination because that's the only way to guarantee, well, not guarantee, but ensure that you've thought about everything that's needed to be thought about. By doing it via elimination, you might have found one rule and then you're like, oh, wait, I actually can't differentiate between these two answers that are left. And that means that you need to go back and find the second pattern that's in it. You should also just approach it one shape at a time. You don't need to take into account the whole thing all at once. That can be very overwhelming. And that's the point of the question, is just to overwhelm you. If you break it down, it's a lot simpler. In terms of verbal reasoning, there's only a couple of different types of verbal reasoning questions. And again, just know what's needed for your state. But this could be analogies, it could be synonyms and antonyms, or it could be reading comprehension. Pretty much everything falls in those categories. And most states will use the analogy style questions. For the analogy ones, you have to do it by elimination. And you need to stay objective in this across the board. It's not about what you think the answer is. And this is more important for reading comprehension. It's about what you have been told in that thing. So if the passage is all about how the moon is what gives the earth light, even though you clearly know that that comes from the sun, you have to do it based on what the passage is saying, not what you know personally. And these are just an example here of the analogy style questions, which if I get time, I can come back and break down how to solve as well. Then you have deductive and critical thinking sections, which not all states have, but it seems to be kind of an emerging section that they have. And for these ones, you really should draw a solution to solve the answers. So some strategies you can use for this is what's called Venn diagrams or number lines. And then the elite members will know what I mean by that, hopefully, for the right states. But it's about drawing out the written problem in front of you so that you know you can see it in front of you and you're not trying to process all these abstract sentences all at once. And you see what I mean if you read that example there. And this is also back to my previous point about you have to focus on what the sentence is saying, not what the truth is or what the absolute truth is. It just has to be based on what they're saying there. In terms of like some of the other style questions, so there's ones that are like this one's actually has it, but words like always or never pretty much tell you that the answer is probably going to be false, because always and never are very what I call strong words. Whereas a word like sometimes means that it's more likely to be true or cannot say, because it's harder to disprove a word like sometimes. It's very easy to disprove an always or a never or only as well. And the other thing as well is that you want to find links between questions or different statements, which is not the best example for this one, but how these ones both have melds in it. Some sentences you might not be able to process all the options unless you start linking two of them together. And then mechanical reasoning is an interesting one. And I think it's quite simple, but simultaneously quite difficult. And it can be, I imagine, very, very infuriating to all of you some of the time. The trick to numerical reasoning is that you need to answer it based on the physics principle that underlines the situation. For example, gravity, heat flow, electrical currents, fluids, forces. They have set rules in physics, which might seem very counterintuitive, but knowing those rules is going to be how you solve these questions. And the answers for physics are always based on ideal situations, not what you experience in real life. So I'm going to give you that example on the side there and explain that as well. But there's a lot of things in physics that don't seem like they make sense, but they actually do once you know more physics, which is hard for you guys coming into this. So on that topic, you should try and learn the key concepts in physics. I've listed some of them in the mechanical guide on the website as well, like the main ones. But unfortunately, that list is kind of never ending. There's a lot of physics things that they could ask about, but all the main stuff should be covered in that workbook as well. But talking about this question here on the side. So what will happen? What will hit the ground first when dropped on the moon, a feather or a brick? And this is a very common example of questions that people get wrong in physics. The answer is neither. They will both hit the ground at the same time. And that seems very counterintuitive in our life, because we all know that if you drop a feather and you drop a brick, the feather is going to float down and the brick's going to fall very fast. But that's only the case because of the air resistance that we have on Earth. And that's not something that's not the gravity principle that the question's asking about. So there's a hidden assumption in this question that is not written, and it won't be written, that you ignore air resistance. And that's something that is quite unfair that they're not telling you that. And that's why you have to know the physics things that they like to test in order to do it. But yeah, if you guys watch a video of this, you drop a feather and a brick on the moon, they hit the ground at the same time. There's another little poll question here, but you can also just ask it in the chat, but I think it's easier if it's on the screen so everyone can read it. But I was going to let you guys ask me any questions and stuff that you guys had too. If you're going to ask me something specific about a state exam, please just include in your answer what state you're talking about, because I can't tell what you guys are coming from. Okay, so first question, is reading comprehension still on QFD? The answer is that they only had reading comprehension last year, and it was a trial run to see if it would be beneficial or not. I have a feeling that they didn't like the results of it, and because it was only a trial last time, and it delayed the whole process because it's on I have a feeling they could get rid of it. Either way, though, I would still be practicing for it. It's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared, but I guess you can keep it in your mind being like, okay, it's probably not in it, but it's not like Queensland's not particularly transparent on what they do. So they didn't mention that there was going to be a reading comprehension test until everyone got the link to it last time. So probably still better to think about it. I have high doubts that the QFD rebranding will have anything to do with the aptitude test. The aptitude tests are done by providers. They have nothing to do with the company themselves. They just sign a contract, and those contracts normally for quite a few years. Admittedly, they have used the same provider for some amount of time, but I would say with all the rebranding and everything, the last thing on their minds is finding a new test provider for the test. Not to mention, there's very limited test providers they can use because they want a supervised test. There's also have been issues for states in the past when they've changed providers about people getting really upset. So for the bigger states, they don't change providers lightly. And then, there's a couple of questions in the chat too, so I'll just answer those. The new fire and rescue practice tests on the website are short, and that is because that reflects the actual time frame for the actual test. Fire Rescue New South Wales for the cognitive test is 50 questions in 15 minutes, which makes it 18 seconds per question. That's why it's 3 minutes on the new website, and that's how fast you need to be able to do it if you want to finish the test. For Fire Rescue New South Wales, according to the criteria website, 31 out of 50 is the 75th percentile, which means to be in the top 25% of people, you need to have got 31 out of 50. I don't know if that's across the board though, not just for the New South Wales, not just for the New South Wales exam. That's for everyone who sits their test. But based on speaking to people last time, the people who got into the 30s got through. People who didn't get into the 30s did not get through. In saying that, obviously accuracy is a big part of that as well. And I did have people finish the test last time. Fire Rescue Victoria have had the same test since 2000 and style testing and everything since 2018, 2019. And before that, they still used the same company. They just used a different exam at the same company. The longest I know, they've always used Pearson. It just used to be, I think, Pearson Talent Lens, and now it's Pearson View. But they should be the same style test. And I don't know for sure when the last one starts, but FRV normally does recruitment June, July. The only time that has changed recently is because of COVID. QFD should stay as Pearson View. I don't work for them though, so I can't guarantee that 100%, but I would say it's very unlikely that they will have changed. And based on their description on the information night or something, it sounded like it was the same test, that they were just dropping reading comprehension. For Queensland's complicated, but they have a pass-fail system, not a competitive system. So for Queensland, you don't need to be in the top however many percent of people, you just need a pass. That pass mark is going to depend on which section of the test that you're talking about. And from what I can tell about Pearson View marking is that certain questions are worth more than others. I don't know if that's technically true for Queensland, but for Victoria, each section is marked out of 72, 73, I believe. But there's only 25 questions, and that's because some of the questions are worth more than others. And I think it's generally the harder ones are worth more. So it's not a very easy thing to say, oh, it's this percentage, because if you got all the hard ones right, you could probably only get 3 or 4 right and get through. Whereas if you got all the easy ones right, you would probably need more of them. In saying that though, for Pearson View across the board, I would be aiming for around 20 out of 25 in each section, which is about 80%. I would say you'll probably struggle to get that though for Queensland numerical, and I think that's okay. People have told me before that they couldn't have got more than 3 right, and then they just guessed everything, and they have gotten through because, like I said, it's a pass-fail system, or they'll maybe just really good guesses. But I don't think it's as high as what you need for Victoria, per se. So for the 31, for Fire Rescue New South Wales, mechanical is a separate question. separate exam. So there's the 50 cognitive ones together in 15 minutes and then 30 mechanical separately in 15 minutes. And this is an important thing to know. To know you can't just do the mechanical ones quickly and save the time for the others. And I don't know about their marking on the back end, but to me, their system does not seem very sophisticated. So I think it is just right and wrong for New South Wales. Abstract reasoning is an interesting one. I think specifically for Queensland and Victoria, I actually think abstract reasoning is I actually think it's the more difficult section to do. In terms of it is really identifying the 5 or so different patterns that there are in it and breaking it down into those. There really is only a couple of solutions in abstract. And once you nail down, these are the 5 solutions, okay, this one looks like it's going to be this type of question, and then trying it, that's really the only way. But I can't go into like the full specifics on how to solve each question because it's too specific to each state. But there is really only about 5 answers to each state's abstract reasoning ones. Yes, to the top question is, if you're unsure to some degree, yes, you can just click C and move on. But you cannot just keep doing that because, like I said, most of them you can't go back on. You don't want to be doing that for a question that you could get right if you spent a few more seconds on it. But if you go, I look at this question, it's monstrous. It's got this whole passage of information. It's a numerical reasoning. And I know it's going to take me like 10 steps. Pick it and move on, because you guys should know that like later in the New South Wales test, for example, there is actually questions that are quicker to solve, even though they're labeled as harder. Yeah. So in terms of abstract reasoning, yes. With New South Wales, they have a question bank and everyone gets a random set of 50 questions. So not everyone is getting the same test. And then when you resit it, you get a new random set of 50. So no, you can't just screen record your answers because you won't get the exact same questions, but it's still from the same question bank. With abstract reasoning, properly written abstract reasoning questions should work horizontally and vertically. Like you should get the same answer no matter which way you go, but there will be an easier solution in one direction, usually. So for QFD, yeah, they'll go this way and this way. Most of them will give you a solution. However, there is category questions where the solution is grouping this one with this one. And this one, and this one, for example. These ones are just random, but category questions where you're grouping them in sets of 3 is a common solution in Pearson VUE tests. So it's not like clockwise or anti-clockwise. And thinking about it in such fixed framework is where you'll kind of go wrong. It's the same with the QFD numerical as well. Just because it's a numerical reasoning pattern doesn't mean it's addition, multiplication, or division. It can also be a pattern in the numbers itself. But sometimes you have to think of things a little bit more abstractly. With abstract reasoning, I often get complaints being like, this answer can't be wrong. This is the solution. But it's always people thinking about it in too fixed of a framework, like being like, oh, it had to be black and then this one had to be white. It won't be something as simple as that. It will be like, oh, the colors are alternating. And there's specific ways that they write the solutions to this that if you practice them, you should pick up off me. So, but if you think I'm wrong, it could be the system mistake, but I'm pretty sure all the written answers are wrong. Sometimes you just got to think of it in a less fixed frame. In terms of all the new coaching, so what's happening on our back end for everyone is that because I'm a qualified doctor now, I can't manage all the aptitude one-on-one lessons by myself because I am generally at a hospital. So I brought in some of my old tutors from my old tutoring company for high schoolers, but they also helped me for a long period of time with the aptitude ones that I couldn't do. So they've been helping me for years doing that. It's just the only difference now is that you guys can see their names, but they have been doing it on the back end. Whenever we didn't have spots with me, they were been teaching it for years as well. Rosie has also joined the team as well because Leah did not have as much availability as we would like. And we didn't want to say no to anyone in terms of providing lessons. And that's kind of our whole method is we want to be able to be more available to you guys and more flexible around you guys as well. My also thinking with aptitude, at least my long-term plan is that I think you guys should set up being like, okay, have a first lesson with Gemma, get an overview and stuff to do. And then you have the other coaches that I've dropped the lesson price off to cost price. And then you can have lessons like weekly or fortnightly of them to really keep you in line and keep you in check as well. That's kind of my thinking because when you're doing like maths or like you guys did tutors in like high school and stuff like that, you need to do the regularity of things. So I just wanted to make sure that we're more available to you guys in that aspect. Rosie is also very overqualified for the job as well. And I'm hoping you guys have been getting lots out of the lessons as well. All the coaches will learn the specifics of each test each time as well. But keep in mind that Leah Cosman and I have been doing this for a decade. And we're passing the information across to them too, but they're just recall of what exactly in each test will be slower. But they have it all written down. They just have to look it up. But all the group classes are the same. We just really wanted to be able to do more classes and stuff like this randomly. We're also going to do a few other classes too that we have planned, which are just newer, just to keep things more interesting as well and keep things more fresh. So it's become repetitive for you guys. I've also added like a feedback form on all the lessons as well. So you guys can submit your opinions and stuff and give me feedback on what I should change and stuff as well. I've only just taken over as the manager of this company. So before I didn't have decision making, but now I do. And I want to make it better for you guys. So please give me your feedback nicely because I work a lot of hours. I'm trying on the back end really hard to make this a better experience for you guys. Any other questions as well? Also, no one's leaving the company either. It's just we have more people to help us with stuff and we can get back to you guys sooner.
Since the new website has launched, I don't think I can see like the previous tests that you've taken and like.
I will show you guys that now. So you can't see the previous aptitude tests because that's impossible because they're not the same anymore. Yeah. I've redone every single test, but this is a new update as of like an hour ago. Is if you go to our website, you can access both sites. So you can go to the new one, which mine's going to glitch out because there's two of me logged in. So it shouldn't redirect. And then you can go to the legacy website, which will take you to the old ones. On the old ones, you'll be able to see your answers for everything from that site. And then obviously everything from the new site.
So is there much of the old stuff brought over to the new stuff for the test and the practice test?
So the reason why, besides being ugly and hard to use, the reason why we actually went full head with the new website is because the old website, the database was not syncing with the website properly, which some of you guys might have noticed is that it was showing you a random answer as the correct answer, but the written explanation was saying something else. That wasn't an us thing. It was the website literally just showing you a random answer because it was getting confused. So that's basically our biggest issue. And that for us is really hard to trace. And we can't just get rid of all of our questions because that's like 15 years of building questions. And each question can take like 20 minutes to write. So what I have done is that I've migrated across all like the mechanical reasoning questions, which are hard questions to write. And same with like the spatial and everything. But the specific tests where I knew there was more issues, I have deleted pretty much all of them and uploaded new questions in their place. In saying that, there's still questions that came across that I shouldn't have come across. So there is going to be some still accidentally showing you the wrong answers, but all the written explanations should be correct, as far as I know. But of course, please just like send me a screenshot with the exact question if you guys have issues, just to the info email, and I'll fix it up each day when I get them. I just can't do all 15,000 questions to work that out. The other benefit of our system as well is that I can now upload questions. I can upload 1,000 questions per minute, which is not a feature that I've fully used yet because obviously I was kind of get it and working. But for a lot of the states and a lot of the question types, I'll now be able to upload questions pretty much instantly, whereas before it would take about 5 minutes per question as well. So once it's getting all working, this will be a lot better and stuff too. I think I kind of answered your questions. Some new, some old. Some of them are also old and weren't on our old website. Like we had them, they just weren't there. So I've added some of those in as well. QFD group calls. If you're talking about on our website, we only do classes month by month. Our base one, for context, even like a year ago, was that there was only 2 aptitude sessions per month, and that was mixed per state. After many years of me pleading, we split them into different states. That comes out of a cost of having like less sessions, but it means they're more specific. Since taking over as well, I'll probably try and add some more sessions kind of like this, where it's just like a random thing that I'll talk about. Amelia is also going to do one shortly on how to use AI in writing to help you better your application rather than just using it roguely like a lot of people are doing. So there'll be stuff like that where it's like one-off sessions that we're going to work on and bring out as well. The other thing I have done, so you guys might notice there's more New South Wales ones in the calendar than Queensland. That's because they open in 3 weeks. The couple weeks before Queensland opens, there will also be more calls as well. And all the old ones are on the archive.
There's a New South Wales one on Thursday. What will the difference be between this and that? Like, will it be very similar?
Oh, so this right now and that?
Yeah.
Oh, so no, my usual sessions, when they're split by state, I go through each question.
Yeah, okay.
This session tonight was open to all our members, not just elite members. But in those group ones, I literally go through every single question type and be like, these are the questions you have to know. And this is how you do it. And here's the best tactic to each of them.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So it'll be more like direct on the stuff. Tonight, I just realized all week from all the emails we were getting is that there was a lot of misunderstanding on how to do aptitude in general, which is the point of this session. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. I hope I can show you guys because someone else is logged in. This part, I also not sure if this is fully syncing properly. And this is one of the things that we really couldn't test until it comes across to the new website. But as you guys can see there's the questions reviewed, which I think is kind of right. There's the accuracy and the time spent. But I don't know if this is syncing from data from the old website or what, but we couldn't test it until it was launched because it wasn't linked to our database. So features like this and stuff we are working on behind the scene, but we really wanted to get the questions across because specifically for Fire Rescue New South Wales, a lot of people didn't realize that you needed to do it faster than 10 minutes, but our old website would only allow us to do 10 minutes. So I needed to launch this website more quickly and I'll fix all the little things as we go. But yeah, the accuracy is meant to be like your accuracy based on the questions you've done. So how many correct, and then the community average as well, which is based compared to everyone else. But I think we'll probably need to like clear this database that's linked to at some point to get those numbers being actually accurate. Going forth, yes, the new website is going to be the one that's updated and the old one. And to some degree, the answer to that is yes. So when I was rebuilding the website, I had to rebuild every single series from scratch. So you'll notice they're more varied. If there was any question types missing, I have added them in saying that I have also added what I would call like related questions in, which might be like not as close to the exam ones, but they use like the same skill or they're like very similar, but like just slightly different. I've done that so that because each test provider each year does add new questions, but they're always like some variant of the old one. They've just changed something. So I tried to like simulate that in ours as well, as I've just added a couple of extra questions in it just so that you guys can also practice and like, okay, I haven't seen this question as often. How can I use the skills I've learned in the other questions to do it? We also, you'll probably notice more questions come out as well over the next month or so too. There is a bunch of new questions on the new website, but they're just not visible yet. But yeah, like I said, I can now upload 1,000 questions in a minute. So, and I've coded computers. I wrote a computer software package that writes all the questions as well. So I can literally write 1,000 questions in a minute, upload 1,000 questions in a minute, and then I just have to create the exams. So it's going to change the thing. And eventually we'll have so many more series that you guys will be able to do a different series every single time you practice. To join group coaching, we need to contact, probably the best person to contact would be just info at Fire Recruitment Australia, and they can work that out and sort that out with you as well. I'll just write that in the chat. But that's our main email for everything. If you send any there, like we all have access to that. So it will go to the right person. But the group coaching, yeah, we'll go through more specifics on absolutely everything for each state too. And if there's anything in particular you guys would like me to cover as well, that's like the feedback in the sessions would be really helpful too. And Cosman's also given me some good ideas as well for the back ones too, which are kind of more like special sessions that we'll try and run, as well as those background ones too. Hopefully that helps you all out and you got something out of it tonight. I know it wasn't as specific just because it was more of a general session. I have to go now because I have another session. But you can fill out the feedback form that you guys will get after this session as well and let me know what you think. I haven't done this before either, so be nice. But it's just kind of a new, just trying to make it a bit more interesting and a bit more worthwhile, rather than the same thing each week. Good luck, everyone. And you guys have questions up, we're always here to help you. Very happy to help you as well. And any issues, you can always just email info and be like, can Gemma read this? And I'll read it and get back to you. You just have to let the admin person know that you want it to go to me. But ideally, it should go to other people before me. But if it's urgent or something, let us know. always happy to help. Like, I really just want to make it a good experience for you guys. Good luck, everyone. I'll speak to you guys later.